9:17 on the morning show with Jeff and Will. We are back on this fine Monday morning, and joining us as she does every Monday around this time, it is the editor-in-chief of the Rockland County Business Journal herself, Tina Traster. Good morning, Tina. How are you this morning?
I am very good. Hope everybody had a fantastic 4th. Wanted to remind everybody that next Saturday, this coming Saturday, Valley Cottage Library between 1 and 3, come join me for a reception for my photography exhibit, American Beauty. Hope to see some of you there. Moving on, big news, Hightour Animal Shelter says Rockland Green breached the contract, not the other way around. Hightour is striking back in a counterclaim that they filed last week. And we have a fresh story on that out today. Basically, many may remember when back in May, when Rockland Green sued Hightour for breach of contract. Just to give you some analysis of this, at the time, it seemed that Rockland Green, led by Howard Phillips, figured that, I guess, that the nonprofit was so diminished and depleted that it was essentially in a vice and would really not have the ability to hire legal representation to defend itself. It seems that Rockland Green has miscalculated and that calculus has turned upside down and basically has put Rockland Green on the defensive. Now, the pure facts are these. The two entities, Hightour and Rockland Green, had a contract. Rockland Green took over animal management. The county handed Rockland Green the facility that Hightour had been in for a long time. And then Hightour and Rockland Green had to have a contract to go into business together. In that contract, there was very, very plain language that if Hightour, that if the Solid Waste Management Authority, which is Rockland Green, wanted to terminate the contract due to any sort of what they perceived as a default by Hightour, it needed to provide them 30 days written notice of the intent to terminate. And the contract plainly also said that Hightour would have had the opportunity to cure any of the default. This is direct language from the written contract and now in this countersuit. There is no dispute that Rockland Green never, ever filed any kind of written notice, a 30-day written notice. And yet, in what always seems kind of ironic is in the suit that they filed back in May, they claimed that it was Hightour that breached the contract. Now, Rockland Green had a whole list of things that they said that Hightour had done wrong, and maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but it really was immaterial, because what is material in the contract dispute is what is written in the contract. And what's written, as I've said, what's written in the contract is that Rockland Green needed to essentially give them notice in writing that they plan to terminate the contract, and Hightour would have had the chance to secure that. Going back to September 21st of 2023, the community probably remembers and recalls that on that day, Rockland Green came in, essentially bolted the gates, ousted Hightour from the shelter where it had operated for 50 years, and essentially sent all of Hightour's employees packing, which still is kind of crazy to me because I don't understand how that happened. But at the same time, they essentially just took over the shelter. And when they did that, they kept all of Hightour's stuff, all their possessions, all their belongings, all the cages and supplies and medical and veterinary equipment and food and medicine and buildings and trailers, and just flat out kept it. So initially what happened was after this kind of shocking event. It seemed that Hightower froze and really didn't believe that it had the funds or the financial wherewithal to fight Rockland Green, being this kind of juggernaut, public authority that has an endless ability to raise taxes and fight lawsuits. So, in fact, Hightower did, I guess, feel shocked and diminished. And for many, many months, rather than fighting back initially with a breach of contract lawsuit, or rather than even going to the courts for an injunction when Rockland Green did this, they went to the bargaining table. They had hired a lawyer, Kantrowitz, a local lawyer. And went to the bargaining table, and the supposition was that Rockland Green said that Hightower owed the entity $150,000. Hightower said it was owed $225,000 for all the things that they took, and it basically became a stalemate. The Hightower spent another $10,000. Rockland Green walked away without getting what it wanted, and so there was a stalemate. Now, that could have ended everything, I guess, right there. But instead, Rockland Green decided to file a lawsuit in May claiming that it was Hightower that breached the contract. And where they miscalculated, and what's going to be very interesting, is that Hightower still had insurance coverage. And through that insurance coverage, they have legal representation. So not only are they able to now fight back, and they do have the wherewithal to defend themselves, but they've also countersued. So this, I think, is not what Lawrence Garvey, the in-house attorney one of the in-house attorneys for Rockland Green, I think this is not a chess move he must have been anticipating, because now essentially it's going to be Rockland Green defending itself for breach of contract. Another part of this lawsuit that's been confounding is that Lawrence Garvey, in the lawsuit, he names, so the lawsuit goes after not only the entity, Hightower, the nonprofit, but it also goes after them as individuals. And it's kind of an incomplete list. Some of the board members are named, some of them are left out, some are former board members, it's kind of this like oleo of defendants who are individually named for liability. And one has to wonder why Garvey and Rockland Green even named these people in the first place, because, again, in a contract dispute, this is between Hightower, the nonprofit, and Rockland Green, the public authority. So these individuals are not party to the suit. Only the entity is party to the suit. And on top of that, unpaid board members of a nonprofit have a statutory immunity in New York, except for exceptions that would never apply here. So again, there are all kinds of just questionable tactics that were taken when this lawsuit was filed. And our analysis, from speaking to several people in the legal field, is that this was a lawsuit that's been designed to, harass and intimidate, and I guess came along with the presumption that Hightower would just simply not be able to muster the legal fees, and would therefore somehow come back to the bargaining table, cave, and figure out whatever it needed to do to try to make this go away. As I said, total miscalculation. Another just small aspect of this is that Hightower has a large fund of money at the Rockland Community Foundation, about $475,000. This is mentioned in the lawsuit too. And again, according to the contract, and contracts matter, according to the contract, that money is protected from Rockland Green. But there have been times at Rockland Green meetings when Howard Phillips, who heads up Rockland Green, has specifically referenced that money and has said that Rockland Green will go after that money. They can't. They can't. That's money that is protected. That's money that's protected by the contract. That's money that's in a foundation. And so, again, it seems like, whatever Rockland Green and Lawrence Garvey were thinking when they crafted this lawsuit, it seems that they did not read the fine print based on what the attorneys, the insurance attorneys from New York City have pointed out. This is money that they simply cannot go after. So you have, the bottom line here is you have a public authority who raises our taxes to do its work. And, what they're spending it on in this case is, I guess, a pretty baseless lawsuit that now they are going to have to send themselves rather than pursue. Rockland Green was aiming to come after Hightower for $5 million, and now it will be interesting to see if through this lawsuit, Hightower is made whole from everything that it essentially lost when Rockland Green came on September 21st, put the bolt on the door, and sent everybody packing. So it's just mind-boggling, and we will be certainly watching this case very carefully because it involves public funds, and that's the bottom line. Rockland Green's a public agency, and the choices that it makes affect every taxpayer in the county. So quite a heavy start to the post-July 4th holiday.
I'd say so. I'd say that's pretty accurate description. A lot of heavy analysis there, and some pretty big accusations and lawsuits being lobbed there. I'm interested to see what your analysis of what could possibly happen depending on who wins these out-and-out legal battles between Rockland Green and the Hightower shelter. I mean, what happens if Hightower winds up being correct in a legal sense, and then what happens if Rockland Green wins out in terms of who violated the contract?
Well, from all of the legal experts that I've spoken to, there's two aspects to this. First of all of the people who were individually named, they will be released from that liability because they never should have been named in the first place. So that's number one. And number two, unless something goes very awry, the contract says what the contract says. Simply that Rockland Green needed to give Hightower 30 days notice. They never did. They really can't get around that. It's a total stumbling block for Rockland Green. So does this go to trial, and it boils down to, well, if it was Rockland Green who breached the contract, then what? And then I think further is who gets to be made whole, or does a judge send this back to mediation? I don't know how Rockland Green could possibly mediate this, because at this point Rockland Green would certainly owe Hightower money. Are they willing to shell out that money for the sake of making this go away, making a settlement, so that it doesn't turn into a trial, a full-blown trial? Maybe. I can't say, what their strategy will be. Sometimes, an entity will come out swinging, and then they'll realize that they're defeated, and so to kind of save face, they'll try to strike a settlement behind closed doors, lawyers around the table. But I think that if this is tested, in the sense of a trial, I think that it's Hightower that's on solid ground, because Rockland Green, allegedly, according to everything that's known and actually said and what the lawsuit says, is that Rockland Green never gave 30 days notice. I spoke to several lawyers, who do contract law, and I said, is this an absolute when a contract says what a contract says? And all of the lawyers said, yes, that's what contract law is. If it says that they had to give 30 days notice, you can't slip around that. no matter what displeasure Rockland Green had with how Hightower was running the shelter. Now, Hightower will never come back and run the shelter. I mean, it's gone. I guess it's gone too far. But I don't know if they walk off with a hefty settlement. Can they rebuild something? Can they rebuild another shelter? Can they rebuild a shelter that will so that the county remains has a no-kill shelter? Because I don't know if the future shelter that Rockland Green is building is going to be no-kill or not. There are a million questions get raised by where this thing stands. But I would say that just to simplify this, a contract says what a contract says, and in a contract dispute, it's between two entities. It's not about the individuals. And I don't know, how Rockland Green is planning to play this out. I mean, they can have pages and pages and pages of complaints about the way the shelter was run, but that's not what will be the subject of the legal the legal discussion. That's not what will be on the table here, according to all of the sources that I've spoken to. Mm. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Again, as I said, because Rockland Green is a public agency. I mean, we mentioned deep down in the story that last year they spent $4 million in legal fees, double what they had spent the year before. That's a lot of money in legal fees.
That's a lot of legal fees.
That's a lot of legal fees because, I mean, I guess they're making certain decisions about how they want to run that operation. Does it raise a red flag? I guess that's for everybody listening to this broadcast to decide for themselves. But certainly right now, this is a public agency, public authority, and they've decided to sue a nonprofit and to sue them for breach of contract when plainly Rockland Green did not give the 30 days notice.
Hmm. Well, I mean, they may see it as a cheaper decision to arrive at a settlement, or they may feel as though they did not do anything wrong and try and, as you said, come out swinging. But we will eventually see what the result is when the legal system works its way through these cases. And Tina, thank you so much for giving us your analysis of the situation. We do appreciate it. If anybody else out there right now wants any more information courtesy of the Rockland County Business Journal, well, by Jove, you can get some by visiting their website, RCBiz, that's RCBIZ, rcbizjournal.com. Or you can follow any of their social media accounts. They're active on Facebook and Twitter, so feel free to get on there. And Tina, one more time, next Saturday, give us the details again about your photography exhibit.
Yes. On a happier note, I have a photography exhibit called American Beauty, and it's hanging right now at Valley Cottage Library. It'll be there for the month of July, but on this coming Saturday between 1 and 3, we're having a reception and hoping lots of people will stop by in that time span. So there'll be good mingling, good socializing, and hopefully good art. And looking forward to seeing some of you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tina. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.